Do you enjoy the harvest of Missouri through food, fuel, or fiber? Interested in strengthening your community or making a difference in the lives of others? You're in the right place. This is Stand for Ag with Missouri Farmers Care. Join us for thoughtful conversations around the intersections of farmer, rancher, and consumer interests. Grab a seat, press play, and join the conversation.
Welcome back to this episode of Stand for Ag with Missouri Farmers Care. We're thrilled that you've joined us, and today our podcast guest is Kyle Durham, chairman of the Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council. Is that right, Kyle?
That's right.
Okay, welcome to the podcast. Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself. He is coming, for those that are taking in this podcast audio only, from the soybean capital of Missouri, Norborne. So Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I do have to give you a point of clarification there.
Uh-oh.
We are self-proclaimed soybean capital of the world.
Wow, that is something to keep in mind, and Missouri should be proud.
Home to the Norborne Soybean Festival and the annual coronation of King Soybean.
It's probably one of a kind.
Certainly, and if you've met any of the other folks from Norborne, they're all one of a kind, or I guess we're all one of a kind.
True. That's true.
That tradition and heritage really brings to the front of mind, how important agriculture is to our community. Mm-hmm. And so when the festival got started, which was 40 years ago now, the folks that really got the thing going wanted to emphasize that importance of agriculture, and soybeans were the largest crop in the area at the time. They continue to be. And so what better way to really honor our agricultural heritage and roots. As far as my background, I'm a 6th generation farmer. Norborne, for those that don't know, is about an hour east of Kansas City in the Missouri River bottoms is where we farm. We farm about 2,500 acres of corn and soybean row crop acres.
Wow. I have to ask, Kyle, you left it out of your resume. Were you once King Soy?
Indeed, I was King Soybean.
I think, as I think through the fine folks of Carroll County and the folks that I know well, that may be a shaping, that may have set everyone on a path to leadership development that we're still reaping the benefits of today. There are a lot of great and fantastic Carroll County leaders across the board of Missouri agriculture.
There are, and every year when the group gets together to select the next King Soybean, it is a difficult decision because we put emphasis not only on an agricultural background and an understanding of how important agriculture is, but also civic involvement and involvement with the festival. And like you said, there are a lot of really great folks in this area that have been volunteer leaders for many, many years, and we certainly expect to continue that.
No doubt about it. In fact, I'm just pulling up Carroll County's contribution. So there are great, fantastic human capital that comes out of Carroll County. But talking about one of our leading ag counties in the state, so that's $161 million of value added, as a side note, comes out of Carroll County with a total ag output of $350 million. That's supporting 2,200 jobs, $190 million in household income. Agriculture certainly packs a punch in those Missouri river bottoms and hills in Carroll County.
It certainly does. And we've been really proud to partner with Missouri Farmers Care. Carroll County was one of the very first agri-ready counties in the state. And that's something that I know our commissioners have taken great pride in. And we continue to value that partnership.
Absolutely. For those of us who follow us on social media, tune in. We're going to be featuring Carroll County. You'll hear more from Kyle, not only on the podcast, but you will be seeing the great work that Carroll County is doing, because you're exactly right. We've just gotten done covering our other first agri-ready county in the state of Audrain County. And now we're switching focus on up the Missouri River and going to be talking about the powerhouse that is Carroll County agriculture. But in the meanwhile, Kyle is here today in part because he is chairman of the Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council, an exceptional partner of Missouri Farmers Care. Without the leadership of Missouri Soy from the very beginning, Missouri Farmers Care wouldn't be what it is today. And that partnership stands strong. Part of that supported pretty much every program that we have done across the board from Missouri Leopold Conservation Award Program, the Drive to Feed Kids, Agri-Ready, Ag Education on the Move, and historically the St. Louis Cardinals Race to the Plate campaign all have had involvement of Missouri soybean farmers through their checkoff. So Kyle, as a soybean farmer, checkoff matters a whole lot to Missouri Farmers Care. We're essentially funded by farmers, right? And the organizations that farmers invest money in. So tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, where you sit as steward of those dollars. Tell us your perspective about the importance of the checkoff to our state and our agriculture.
Certainly, and I'll give you just a bit of background for listeners that may not be familiar with what the checkoff is. When a farmer sells a bushel of soybeans at the end of a harvest, to a local elevator, to a biodiesel plant, wherever those beans may go, he or she is assessed 0.5% of the sale price of those soybeans, which goes into what's known as generally as the checkoff. Half of that money is used by a national organization, United Soybean Board, and then the other half of that then is remitted to the states from which it was collected. So you take that 0.5 of 1%, slice that in half, and that's essentially what MSMC, or the Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council, as your soybean checkoff board, manages on an annual basis.
Yes.
The thing we always really like to emphasize is that the checkoff really belongs to the farmers. We all pay into the checkoff. I pay into it. My neighbors do. And so that's where our collective force for good comes from. So we are tasked as a checkoff organization with promoting research, education, and promotion. And that's really the three-legged stool of checkoff work across the board. We're prohibited from doing any sort of lobbying or election activities. So that sort of stuff falls to our sister organization, the Missouri Soybean Association. But certainly we want farmers to know and to feel that their checkoff is not only working for them, but they are an active part of that checkoff program also. So on an annual basis, we try to poll farmers across the state as often as we can to find out what their priorities are when it comes to research. I don't have to tell you, Ashley, farmers have a lot of challenges that they face in a given year, from insects or weeds to climate and soil. And so we try to gauge from our farmer input what where the priorities are that they see on their own farms that they'd like answers to. Because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is create new knowledge and then share that with the farmers of the state.
I love the term collective force for good. I often say that's part of our charge as Missouri Farmers Care, that it's everybody coming together and collectively pooling the programs that we know are vested interest in everybody's vested interest, that no one organization particularly feels they need to lead. One of those, you're exactly right, is research. I feel like Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council leads the way in many respects on research. So I'm headed here. I have a save the date on my calendar for a few weeks from now. On March 18th for a cover crop field day, right, at Bay Farm. So Bay Farm is within the University of Missouri system, but run, managed, owned by the Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council. Is that right, Kyle? Where there's some pretty neat cutting edge research going on. Can you tell us a little bit about what you see at the Bay Farm and how it plays out in people's farm fields and operations?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Bay Farm, which sits right next to Bradford, if folks are familiar with the Ag Experiment Station just outside of Columbia, Bay Farm is wholly owned by the Missouri Soybean Association. And we work in cooperation with them to house a lot of our soybean breeding research program there at the Bay Farm. Additionally, we also do breeding research at the Delta Center down in Porterville. But the Bay Farm really, as we move forward, I think the direction and the feel of that is really going to take on more of a smart farm approach. And, we have an excellent opportunity and partnership with our brethren over at the association to really push the envelope and find innovative ways to help producers improve their operations. Because, at the heart of Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council, our mission and our vision is to empower Missouri soybean farmers through innovation. So you'll probably hear me use the word innovation to the point of ad nauseum, but it really is what drives us. And we certainly are not going to ever be in a position of telling farmers how to farm, but we want to make sure, like I said, that we're creating that knowledge base, that we're always learning. Because as Neil Armstrong once put it, research is the creation of new knowledge. So
yes, I love seeing the work. First of all, even on, I wear a hat at the Missouri Clean Water Commission, where I see and am engaged in lots of water, air, conservation, stewardship activities and work, from nutrient reduction strategy. And so I work very closely with soy staff, which are protecting and engaging the farmer's best interests in tough issues like climate smart agriculture and the Gulf hypoxic zone and many other things that I think that that research is positioning farmers to be best prepared for those conversations and those management decisions down the road, but are also engaging in making sure that farmer perspective is represented in that decision-making process. And so I am always excited to see on the ground what that looks like at the Bay Farm that I visit most often, from the cover cress field trial that's been out there this last season to everything else that goes on out there. I think that those investments really are enhancing that pool of knowledge, as you said, so that no one individual needs to take that first risk. It's a perfect opportunity to try that out in the real world and disseminate that information then that can benefit all soybean farmers.
Absolutely. Farmers have long and always will continue to view ourselves as stewards of the land and of the resources that we've been given. The land and the water and the air, those things will all be around long after we're gone. And so we do put an emphasis on things, as you mentioned, like cover crops and trying to figure out what the best combination of that is in a given crop rotation, so that it's something that's easy to bring into an operation if a grower is interested in it. We're also working on biodiversity projects. We do a lot of conservation work along, edge of field, grass waterways, anywhere that we can reduce our impact as farmers, and also continue to keep an eye forward. And we ultimately want to reach sustainability. And of course, that's kind of a loaded term, and it means something different to every group involved. But when I look at it, sustainability, first and foremost, is profitability for the farmer, because without that, he or she is not going to be able to continue to do that. But secondly, to really be that true good steward of those resources and be able to pass it down to the next generation.
Yep, I see soybean farmers across the state living that out on a daily basis. And it's really an honor to see that the cutting edge of management strategies that we get to see, not only in our stewardship leaders. You've got a lot of on-farm research that's going on that I get to go on those farms as well, but our conservation and award recipients through the Missouri Leopold Conservation Stewardship Award Program, where you get to see those that are really just pushing the envelope of the best way that they can be the best stewards and the best business managers. You're exactly right. It's an honor to see the stewardship ethic that guides our farmers across the state. We often see that in the recipients of the Missouri Leopold Conservation Award Program, and see them always advancing, continually improving, pushing the envelope on practices that keep their farms sustainable on the production side as well as the business side for generations to come is most of our goal, right? So it's an honor to see that work. I also see Missouri soybean, you said we've talked about some research. There's a lot of other research in other areas that I see everywhere I turn. High oleic soybeans and soybean oil is one that I see popping up everywhere, Kyle. So for those that aren't aware of what's going on or Missouri's leadership stake in this, Walk us through what high oleic soybean oil is and why that's important to consumers down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give a bit of background because it really ties into why this is such an important discovery. Soybean oil in the human food market enjoyed quite a large share several years ago, several decades ago. It was in a lot of products that you would buy, like salad dressing and that sort of thing. As we came to really realize the danger that trans fats posed with the partial hydrogenation of those oils, which don't ask me to explain it, I'm not a chemist, but I understand, is soybean oil fell out of favor in the edible oils market at that time, and for good reason. So actually at that same time, and this would have been in the 90s, farmers through their checkoff had invested into this weird and crazy concept known as biodiesel, which at that time was really just guys kind of cooking it up in their garage. So, the Will Nelson types,
Yep.
But those early investments in the 90s with the University of Missouri and Columbia really paved the way for the biodiesel industry as we know it today. Biodiesel was born in Missouri. A lot of people don't realize that. And Missouri currently is the #2 biodiesel producer in the nation. So that's a great story of how farmers through their checkoff invested in themselves, empowered themselves to go ahead and even though they'd lost one market segment, to pick up another that has really picked up the slack. And we see soybean oil being used all over the place now, and we can visit with that a little bit later too. What's really cool about high oleic soybeans is it positions us as farmers to be back in that edible oils market. So that's a discovery that was made at the University of Missouri down at the Delta Center with our breeders down there in a partnership with USDA ARS. And in that, we've took via conventional breeding, so it was a non-transgenic, it's not a GMO, combined soybean varieties that already had high levels of what we called oleic acid. So when we say oleic acid in oils, think avocado oil or olive oil. Those are really the preeminent oils that are high in these oleic acids. By combining these naturally occurring soybean varieties, we were able to have this novel discovery of a high oleic soybean, which required no sort of transgenic genesis to it. So it is, as I mentioned, it's a non-GMO, so it really serves any of the markets that value a non-GMO or an organic product, if that's how a grower chooses to raise them. But it also allows going forward for that high oleic component to be paired with some sort of a herbicide tolerance or any other disease package or anything like that a grower might desire as well. And we really foresee an opportunity for growers to capture additional premium, whether they want to grow a non-GMO or a traditional crop, farm it organic. The market is going to be large enough, we feel, that everybody that wants to participate in it is going to be able to, and to capture that value.
That is a fantastic expanded use, reclaimed use. How about for our local soybean oils? So I love to hear that while I love avocado and olives, I love avocados and olive oil, right? I also like American made, whether that be on my dinner plate or in my fuel tank. And so I like the local aspect, right? The Midwestern aspect of that healthy oil that we're getting from our farm fields, just as much as I love biodiesel and ethanol that comes from our Missouri farm fields as well. So that's an exciting development. I'm glad to hear of the growth of it after a lot of investment and time. And Kyle talking about this for what seems like a long time, right? We're on the cusp of it really taking off.
Yeah, as we look at a soybean, when we crush a soybean,
Mhm.
Ashley, that it essentially comes out to two parts. There's oil and there's meal. And
Mhm.
for a very long time, oil was really a drag on the price of soybean. What that means to our friends in the livestock industry is consequently that meal had to carry the value in that crushed bean. As we continue to expand the uses of soybean oil, both high oleic and traditional soybean oil, what we've seen is the inverse is now the case, where soybean oil is really carrying the value of that soybean that comes out of the field. So that really does give our livestock friends an opportunity to still purchase the high quality, high protein soybean meal that they're used to at a lower cost, because the oil is carrying that value.
And you mentioned livestock. For a long time, for decades, Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council has worked hard to support the expansion, the growth of Missouri's livestock industry. Do you have any projects or programs that are going on now? I mean, I know it's been a fantastic long-term partnership, but what does that look like on a day-to-day basis in partnering our row crop industry and our livestock industry?
Well, we realize that the Merchandising Council, the livestock is our number one consumer of soybeans, flat out. So as we know that when we have strong partners, we're all stronger together. That's why we partner with organizations like the U.S. Meat Export Federation in helping with international projects that not only serve our farmers and the farmers that keep an eye on us, but also livestock producers, because a lot of soybean producers across the state and across the country are also cattle farmers, or they're hog farmers, or they're corn growers. So, the market or the pool of farmers that is out there is so diverse that we do realize that what benefits one benefits all in a lot of cases.
Yep.
Another really rapidly growing segment that we're exploring at soybean is aquaculture.
Mhm.
There are parts of the world where aquaculture is booming at a rate that we haven't seen anywhere else. And so we've worked with partners at the U.S. Soy Export Council, or USEC, in developing and helping to promote what we call in-pond raceways, which allow for a lot more efficient feeding of fish species over there in areas like Vietnam and Cambodia and Myanmar. That work also continues with the World Initiative for Soy in Human Health, or WISH, which focuses primarily on developing nations. So we know that animal agriculture, whether it's on the hoof or whether it's got feathers or fins, they all play a part in making soybean farmers profitable. And our commitment has been and always will be to our friends in the agricultural and the animal sector.
Yes. So I haven't looked at recent data. You mentioned our international markets, how important those are. The last time I looked, I think the stat said 1 out of every 2 rows of soybeans somehow, or some component of those, end up on the global market. Is that what trade still looks like today?
Yeah, I think the stat I heard is somewhere between 1 out of every 2 or 1 out of every 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then of that, China historically has been, 1 out of 3 of those 3.
Mm-hmm.
But as we came through the tough times as far as trade is concerned over the last few years, the realization was made, and is that yes, it was really nice to have China as one big export destination, but we saw significant market disruptions when that export market was closed to American farmers. And so at that point, the emphasis shifted, and we really started to look to build more in emerging markets and other established markets that maybe hadn't been served as well in the past as it had been in China, just because of volume of sales that were going different places. So that's really when we started to look at areas like the Middle East and Southeast Asia, these areas that have rapidly growing populations that are upwardly mobile as far as their income, and their diets are reflecting it. They want more protein, they want more meat in their diet. And we know as soybean farmers that we're in a really great position to provide that increased protein demand that the world has.
Absolutely. So it wouldn't be as timely a conversation if we didn't hit on the geopolitical disruptions that are going on right now with Russia and Ukraine, right? Ukraine's an agricultural powerhouse. What do you see shaping up? Have you heard from those in DC or internationally with your partner agencies? Like, what kind of disruptions do you see coming for the spring from just, we're such a global marketplace? What does this do to agriculture here in the Midwest?
Well, it's hard to say without having my crystal ball here in front of me. I must have left it back at the house when I took off this morning. But anytime that you have uncertainty in global markets, it's going to cause a lot of volatility. And we've seen that. We've seen wild swings in commodities of all types, not just soybean and corn, but in oil and natural gas. As we move into spring now, guys are starting to roll in the fields, and what was already looking to be tight supplies of things like anhydrous ammonia and the other fertilizers that we put on our fields could be stretched even further. We're seeing a lot of logistical challenges that COVID exposed, compounded now by this global uncertainty. Certainly my prayers are with the people of Ukraine, and we certainly hope that this will come to a swift resolution.
Absolutely. And if you find that crystal ball, give me a call. I'll head on down to Norborne. We'll get those under manufacturing. Okay.
All right.
that was good. Okay. So we've talked a lot about global marketplace. Let's focus in a little bit closer to home. And one of the other pillars that we see engagement with the Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council is education. They are really the founders, creators of Ag Education on the Move, our 10-week ag education program that they've supported throughout its history with Missouri Farmers Care. And it wouldn't be possible to reach the 6,000 kids that we're reaching this semester with ag education literacy without their support. So I'm sure that's just a drop in a bucket. So tell me about what education looks from where you sit, Kyle.
Well, we take a view of it of educating folks from all walks of life. So that's the education work that we do with our own soybean farmers here in the state. We mentioned some of the programs that we do as far as conservation field days, other research field days that showcase other new knowledge that we want to make available to farmers. Any of those outreach efforts to the farmers of the state that we serve really has that goal, as I said, of empowering them through this innovation. We also look to educate the general public, both those that are maybe one or two steps removed from the farm and those that really have no connection to the farm. And so each of those groups, as you look at them, have different biases and different backgrounds from which they come. They have different priorities on what they want to know, what they want to see. And so that's, it's a large and comprehensive education program that we've got to have. And so that's why I'm so excited that we now finally have a Center for Soybean Innovation there in Jefferson City. That's where Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council and the association are headquartered. That's where our staff operate out of. But it's more than just an office building. And I know a lot of your listeners have probably had the opportunity to visit the center in Jeff City. But if you haven't, I strongly urge you to go in there, because that's what it is geared toward, is educating all of those different groups. So we have spray trainings for farmers, different, we've got a bank of conservation programs out in the back that we're able to actually demonstrate, whether it's to a civic group or a farmer group or whomever it may be. We do policymaker education. Though we're prohibited from doing any sort of lobbying or anything, we are allowed by the act and the order to do policymaker education. And so being headquartered there in Jeff City is an excellent opportunity to bring our legislators in and to really show them what Missouri farmers are doing on their fields and the importance of their soybean checkoff investment. We have, I forget now how many different school groups that we've had through the building at this point, but the activities and the exhibits that are housed there at the Center for Soybean Innovation all have that goal of really being able to put people in touch with soy and to really help you realize how soy touches your life every day, and we may not even recognize it.
I would encourage anybody who hasn't been through there, or as you said, any school group, that it is a great way to see how soy touches your life in every single way, every day. It's a fantastic facility. We are exceptionally grateful for Missouri Soy for hosting Missouri Farmers Care there. That's our office. And it's not just Missouri Farmers Care. There's a whole host of partner organizations that soy is supporting in their growth and development. So we appreciate it. Kyle, is there anything we've touched on? Probably only a small portion of the things that you're impacting or that are impacted by soy, but is there any hot topic that we haven't covered today before we sign off?
Well, one burning question I have for you, Ashley.
Right.
You said you'd been to dinner. Have you had the soy donuts yet?
I have not. I've seen the soy machine. I want to replicate the soy donuts. We have a great plan for them at Grant's Farm, but I've personally not had a soy donut yet.
So for folks that don't know, these are donuts fried in high oleic soybean oil and also made with a soy flour. So as I said, we really wanted to have those tangible items that folks find memorable and really stress that soy is so big a part of your everyday life, and odds are you may not even realize it. So our boiler there for a heat system runs on biodiesel. The paint throughout the building is all soy-based paint. We've got a soy-based sealer on the asphalt outside. There are patches of turf and even a putting green in there that are all soy-based. And so many neat things within that building. You just need to go and spend an afternoon or a morning, and the staff is certainly more than willing to welcome you and to guide you through that as we continue to tell the story. Absolutely.
It is definitely interactive through and through, and lots of opportunities to learn there. So thank you for joining me. This has been an engaging conversation today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everything you've shared and your leadership. We really appreciate the partnership. Thank you for joining us today. And thanks to everybody who's tuned into this episode of Stand for Ag with Missouri Farmers Care.
Thank you for joining the Stand for Ag podcast with Missouri Farmers Care. We're excited to bring you new stories each week. We as agriculturalists have a lot of stories to tell. Stories of resilience, grit, and stories of families that are united by their passion for agriculture. Each week, tune in for a new episode and join the conversation.